Welcome back to Thrifty with AA. If you're new here, this channel is about how to be wise with your money, how to be resourceful, and how to make the most of what you have. In my first video, I showed you how I created my man cave and YouTube studio where I'm recording from right now without being a builder and on a very low budget. And in my second video, I went through my tech setup, which I managed to gather over some time, also without breaking the bank. Now in this episode today, I'm going to take a step back and talk about what thrifty means to me. So for me, it all started in the 80s. I grew up on a council estate in East London in Limehouse. And back then, everyone seemed a lot poorer than today. We were certainly poorer. My dad used to buy a lot of second-hand things for the house. Most of our furniture was second-hand. Some of the furniture we'd find on the street. My dad would fix things up and he would repurpose them. There were more hand-me-downs at the time. We had less toys. We'd end up making our own toys. We'd find tree branches which were perfectly Y-shaped to make catapults. So we'd saw off the branches, we'd find scraps of leather and we'd collect elastic bands and put it together and make catapults which would actually work really well. By the time we were 10 or 11 years old, we were all able to fix our own bike punctures. We were really resourceful back then. There was also this derelict area not far from where we lived, and we'd find planks of wood and scraps of wood, sneak a hammer from home and some nails, and we'd try and put it together, make a shelter for us to play around with. That's how life was back then. We had to be a bit more creative, unlike today where you have Amazon, online shopping, the abundance of technology. Of course, back then, technology was primitive. Everyone owned a lot less. Another lesson that I learned from my father was that he told me never to take a credit card out or take a bank loan and pay bank interest. And to be honest, I've stuck to that all my life. And I think it does a huge amount for my mental well-being. Staying out of debt gives you that extra control of your financial status. And I've also resisted this temptation of taking a loan out to do major works or buy something expensive. And I've always managed to stick to what my dad told me. And I've only spent if I've managed to save my money. And that's the best way to do it, by planning ahead and making sure that you stay debt free. Another lesson that I learned from both my parents really was gardening. And both my parents grew vegetables in our garden. And as they grew older, I started to contribute. Just started off with watering, and eventually gardening became a personal hobby. Today, I have my own allotment. I still grow vegetables in my own garden, and that is a huge source of the organic food that we consume as a family. So gardening is a big thing to me. Sustainability is a big thing. Reusing things, not wasting, growing your own, eating organic food. I think is, for me, it's a huge part of my life. So going into spring, when I go to my allotment next year, I will be recording footage and I'll be uploading it on this channel as well. And now going into the 1990s and the 2000s, we no longer were buying second-hand furniture for the house. So everything was flat packed, bought from Argos, maybe, IKEA, or any other furniture store. But we were no longer buying second-hand furniture, although I was still trying to be wise with my money in general. So in fact, we still have two items that my dad bought second-hand from the 1980s still in this house. So then I learned a very big lesson from one of my previous colleagues. Now, I'm not going to mention his real name. So for this story's sake, I'm going to call him Mike. So Mike was a full-time math teacher. He was actually from a fairly wealthy family. So Mike and his friend, they both bought a house, not with their money, but with their father's money. Both fathers were barristers. The house that they bought, the fathers bought for the sons, cost £300,000. So the fathers paid in the region of £150,000 cash for the sons to give them a head start in life. And why not? But despite being from wealthy families, Mike would leave work, working as a teacher in the evening, go back to his house and he'd work on his house. And then he'd do this every evening and on weekends. His dad would come over, his brother, sister, would come over selflessly, helping him out. And they fixed up the whole house. They've actually gutted the whole house out, and they did everything from top to bottom, as you can imagine. Now, at the end of it, of course, Mike saved a lot of money working on his house with himself and his family. But that taught me a really big lesson. Here was Mike from a fairly wealthy family, a much wealthier family than myself. But he was willing to graft every day after work and on weekends. And why not? And that's a very big lesson that I learned, that you have to be prepared to graft for yourself when the need arises, and not to shy away, and not to pay for others to do something that you can do yourself. Another big lesson that I learned off mic was that when he completed the house, he invited us all for dinner. All the colleagues went over and we saw his house. It was really impressive, beautiful house. He did it at a very high standard. But the surprising thing was, Mike kept telling us, this is something that I found at the bottom of my street and I repurposed it and I made this out of it. This is a cooker that I bought on Gumtree for £600. Brand new, it would have been £2,000. I bought it and I cleaned it up and it actually looks good as new. And this is something else that I found secondhand or in a skip. He repurposed and reused so many items along the way in fixing that house of his. It really humbled me because, again, Mike is from a wealthy family and Mike is prepared to buy secondhand and reuse things. And there's no shame in finding something out of a skip. And that is a very big lesson that I learned. And in fact, Mike has inspired me to look for used items on eBay or on Gumtree, and I haven't looked back since. I think it's such a good idea to look for used items. You do save a lot of money along the way. Another thing about me is that I work on reduced hours. Now, because I work on reduced hours, I'm earning less than I was when I was working full time, and that naturally makes me more efficient with my spending. I try not to give in to my temptations when I'm out shopping, and I try not to buy too many things spontaneously. And naturally, working on reduced hours, you think more efficiently. Now, by working less hours, I've gained the biggest asset of all, which is time. And giving yourself that extra time gives you time to think, gives you time to do chores, things that you've been putting off. The shopping, I do all the shopping as much as I can when I'm not working, so that I'm not having to drag the kids to the Asda, local Asda or Tesco on weekends when it's a lot busier. But by working less hours, I feel that I've gained so much for my mental well-being, that I've gained so much wealth in ways that can't be measured financially. Now, just to wrap up, what shaped me to become thrifty was growing up in the 1980s, owning less things, repairing things ourselves, and then learning lessons from my father about finance, not taking loans out or credit cards, learning from both my parents about gardening and about sustainability. And let's not forget my colleague Mike, who I learnt a lot of. I had to be resourceful and not be ashamed, no matter what your financial status is, to buy secondhand goods and making the most of used items and repurposing things, and also choosing to work less. And that improves your quality of life, gives you more time, and I think that overall for me is a thrifty lifestyle. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any stories that have inspired you to become thrifty, I'd love to hear it. Please write that in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and look out for my future videos for more thrifty ideas, and hopefully I'll see you soon.